Welcome to episode 1 of Build Art Break. Today we want to talk to you about joy. With so many outside forces that work to control our emotional state, such as work, school, bills, and court cases, all kinds of impressions we face every day, making space for happiness is revolutionary. It is a resistance and rejection of those things that tear us down. Joy helps minimize the stress of traumatic experiences we have gone through, or the stress of everyday life. It activates positivity in our brains and helps us heal and thrive. What we want to do with this video is focus on the things that bring us joy. Celebrate them and then let positivity flow so we can live our best lives. Here are some of the materials you need for this exercise. Paper, a canvas, or a photograph of yourself printed on paper, a pencil or pen, and some color. If you use a photo, you'll be painting over it, so make sure you have another copy. Some other options include a tracing of your hand or using the outline of a human shape to represent yourself. If you want to go big, have someone trace the shape of your actual body on a large sheet of paper. First, think about things that make you happy or bring you joy. Make a list of about 5 to 6 items that you can think of. These can be small moments like warm chocolate chip cookies or something bigger, like a memory of a vacation or a person that you really appreciate. Anything that brings you joy into your life. The next thing you would do is assign each item from your list its own color. Maybe the color holds some meaning, or maybe it's a random match. You should choose colors that also make you happy and at peace. If you know why you chose each color, that is great, but it isn't necessary to explain or even understand why you chose a color to go with that topic. Now it's time to think about each color and the item it represents. Using your paint or colored pencils, try to get down on the paper or canvas the way you feel about this item. Here we are drawing on top of a vacation photo, but we also show a version that uses the outline of a human to represent ourselves. You can also feel free to start with a blank canvas or the examples we talked about earlier in the instructions. Some of the things that you can think about as you paint are what are the shapes the thing takes, or where does it show up for you in your life? Does it have patterns or is it free-flowing? Don't worry at all about getting it right, because any mistake in art is alright. What is important is that you are focusing on the things that bring you joy and allow them to shine in your artwork. When you're done, spend some time thinking about your creation. Reflect on those things that bring you happiness one more time. Thank them, and let's look for more opportunities to let them grow in your life. If you'd like to share what you've created, we would love to see it. Snap a photo and email us at art@build206.com or share it on our Instagram at build206. We're choosing one random community member each week to win a Visa gift card for sharing their creation with us. Stay tuned next for our interview with Seattle's artist and art therapist, Dalisha Phillips of Love, Light, Energy Art Therapy. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
All right. So we're here on Build Art Break this week with Dalisha Phillips, proprietor, art therapist of Love Light Energy Art Therapy. Did I get it
That's
right?
me. Love Light Energy Art Therapy. Yes, that's me.
Yeah. Dopest, one of the dopest, funnest, most engaged artists in town. Always has a smile and a good word. So we're happy that you can join us. Thanks, Dalisha.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Aaron. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
All right. So I explained to you a little bit about what Build Art Break is all about. We wanted to put together some healing center activities for community. We it's been quite a couple of years for everyone, and then those folks, marginalized folks. We had the movement for Black Lives that just really popped off, and as exciting as it has been, it's also been very stressful for folks, and
Mm.
so we're all about here at Build Art Break is using art as a way to soothe ourselves, to uplift ourselves and build community, and so we've been having conversations, and we'll have conversations with some other artists in town, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk to an artist who's also an art therapist. So here you are. Thank you for joining us. And I want to start with a question, maybe just about your personal art practice. Do
Okay,
you consider yourself an artist, first
for
off?
sure, for sure.
And what kind of art do you create primarily?
Ooh, good question. I am a multimodality artist. I like to do a little bit of all the different types. Um, but some of the ones that I am like more immersed in, I think present day, I'm really into building installations. And I would say that that's really, like my jam right now. And I like to create installations that are interactive where folks can engage with the art making in a way that is around promoting things like joy and gratitude and laughter and beauty and opportunities for them to see themselves as part of the art. So yeah, installations are my jam right now. I really like to mess around with clay and consider myself a ceramicist, a ceramist. I mess it up like every time, but I like to play with clay.
One of
Sculpt
them people.
on the wheel, yes. I carry a lot of energy in body, and so working in clay is a really beautiful modality that allows me to move that energy and then put it into whatever it is that I'm creating. Um, I'm a performer, a musician. I dance. I'm in a burlesque act called Simone Pin. We are a little bit dormant right now just because of so many things that are going on with the performance industry as it intersects with COVID and venues, and wanting to be sure that folks are able to be safe and not being perpetuators of this whole COVID and Delta variant situation. So I do all different types of art form. I'm a roller skater.
Right.
I consider that an art form. I be chefing it in the kitchen. I consider that an art form.
All of
So yes, so I do all different types.
were you always an artist? Like, were you creative as a young
Ooh.
person?
Oh yes, for sure. Yes. And it was probably like the last I'm 37. And it was probably like the last three
Youngster.
3 to 5 years that I really stepped into my identity as an artist and felt comfortable calling myself an artist. And that was definitely a process. But I have been a creative. I have been engaged in the arts for as long as I have been, revolving the sun. So,
Nice. Yeah, I feel like you what we were talking the other day at Build Art Break, just as a quote from, I think Picasso talked about every child is an artist, right? But then the trick is trying to remain an artist as you
yes,
grow. And
yes.
so yeah, that sort of has my similar story for me, just coming back around and realizing how important being creative is, just to my own, just my own mental health and
Yeah.
well-being and enjoyment of life. It just really it makes a difference.
Mm.
um and so that makes me wonder, like, how did you get into being an art therapist?
Ooh, okay. Mm. Um, from a personal, place, as I mentioned, I have been a creative and into the arts ever since I was a child. And art making or creative processes as a young person was my main coping method. Um, I did not grow up in a traditional home where, you got two parents and a dog and a house and all of the things. Both of my parents were incarcerated for the majority of my upcoming. I was raised collectively by my family, primarily by my grandma. Academics were like not a strong suit of mine necessarily. Like was mad smart, like probably smarter than all of my teachers. But when it came to, things like grades and, academic accolades, that wasn't really my jam. But where I did really thrive, where I did really find like my own sense of self was like in the orchestra,
Mm.
was in, trying out for plays and dancing and being in assemblies where I had opportunities to perform, um, or in my art classes. And it was often the like adults who were art-based educators were the ones that like saw any value in me, where in my academic classes, I was a problem. One, I was smarter than the teacher, and I knew that was, spitting some BS to the young folks, and I was distracting. I was that kid. I was distracting, but that served me well in my artist and creative endeavors. And so personally, like, I as a young person found a lot of healing through art making and creative process. Now then, by way of the arts, I was able to navigate my way through, K-12 and made it to college. And it was, in my little introductory to psych classes that I was, just kind of like when they're exploring the different avenues of the field of psychology, they had like tiptoed into that there was art therapy, that was an actual thing. And so I think that was my first real exposure to art therapy being a thing. And I was attracted to it. I was like, oh, bing. It was kind of like one of those aha light bulb moments. And so from there, I was just kind of like on it. I was like, okay, I'm strong in the arts. I have these, various creative endeavors. So now let me really focus in the academic arena, to do what I needed to do to graduate college. So I graduated with a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in sociology. And then I came into the real world. And had an opportunity to work doing some youth service oriented work, serving young people who were experiencing homelessness. And I was teaching in a barista training and education program that they have down as like a collaboration between Fair Start and youth care.
Yeah.
And yes, dope program. I was an educator in that program, and I had an opportunity by way of that work to just start bringing art making into my classroom. And so continued on in my career endeavors, moved even more heavily into education spaces. And I'm always in all of the schools that I have been in, since 2008, I'm making artistic boards that young people can interact with. I'm publicly making art like in the hallways or in the lunchroom, just so that young people, because they're curious, they'll spark up conversations with me. Leading a lot of groups with young folks centered around art making as an intervention, in education spaces. And then maybe like 2014, 2015, I made the leap to go back to grad school to get my master's in counseling. And I specifically picked a program that offered a master's in counseling with a focus in art therapy. So, and long story short,
Here you are.
here we are. So it was like from personal to experiential to professional, I don't know, all those things kind of just kept on marrying themselves, blending themselves together. And that is how I got here today with, having my own art therapy practice, and serving my community in a very unique and like true to me and my identity way.
It's important. We appreciate you. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, thank you.
So you touched a little bit on this, but for just to reiterate for folks who are tapping in, what are the benefits like to being creative? That might be emotional benefits, mental health wise,
Yes.
socially.
Ooh, I love this question.
What are those things that doing art or experiencing creativity can do for us?
Yes. Okay. So, yes, I love this question because this is where I feel like I really get to bring, lend into my experience and my expertise. So, this is how it goes. art making in and of itself has therapeutic value. So, and this is lots of folks have experienced, right? They might paint to relax, or they might draw to, when they're in a turmoiled mind space, or they dance to release energy or to get their anger out. So just the act of art making itself has therapeutic value. So then you pair that, it's like the flip side of the same coin, with intentionality, with training, with education. You can really amplify that therapeutic value. And so I, as an art therapist, am foundationally trained as a mental health counselor. I can do talk therapy all day, every day, if I wanted to, or if that's what it is that my clients were seeking and or needed. But I have been trained to intersect every aspect of a mental health counseling relationship with some form of art making or creative process. Mm-hmm. So when folks reach out to me and they want to do a consultation or an intake, or when I do assessments for folks, or I think about treatment planning, I do all of those things with dialogue, but also integrating with intention, art making and creative processes. And so what like, I think the question really is like, what's the power of that? Like, why is that even a thing?
Yeah.
And so this is where the magic happens. So when we are dialoguing, that's a left brain process. That's like on our left side of the brain, our left hemisphere, where we hold our logic, our linear, our vocabulary, our straightforward thinking, as opposed to in complement to our right hemisphere is where we hold our creative selves. That's where we have our imagination. Our artistic center is in the right hemisphere of our brain, our creativity. And so I, as an art therapist, do a lot of dialoguing, support folks in linear thinking and strategy and problem solving. But I also activate their creative centers to be thinking about new and creative ways, or to be thinking outside of some of the boxes that their left side of their brain creates for themselves. So the art, like the magic of art therapy, is around integrating the two sides of your brain. So if I'm a left brain dominant person, these people, they're the type A's. They're the like A plus B got to equal C. And if it don't equal that, like I can't, like I'm highly anxious. A lot of times.
We know them because we call them to do our taxes, right?
Yes, yes. And there are a lot of folks who, they're left brain dominant and they utilize that as an asset. They seek out the types of careers or opportunities that really lean into that straightforward, linear, strategic like thinking. So a lot of folks who are in that left brain dominant space, anxiety is a thing that comes along with that. Not everybody, but oftentimes, or in complement to right brain dominant folks, and the creatives of the world, right? They're the emotives. They're like the high highs and low lows, like, and so depressive like symptoms, or like the depression side of the mood spectrum, is where folks who are right brain dominant sort of gravitate towards. And when you think like some of the greatest artists of the world, like their art is really fueled by trials and tribulations and heartbreaks, and also like the beauty and the magic that the world has to offer us. But sometimes, like the creatives of the world, they're not often as appreciated until, right, they're not here anymore. They don't get the same like value in society necessarily as, the scientists, the mathematicians, the engineers of the world. And so art therapy has this amazing power to really like bring that creative part of you, and then also that structure oriented part of you, and integrate those two things, and it simulates balance. And so that's why it's, it's different than just sitting across from me and talking about what it is that you're experiencing. But if I guide you through making some artwork around what it is that you're experiencing, and then also talking about what it is, you are just you're simulating that integrating of the two sides of your brain. And that's the magic of it.
That's what's up. I really appreciate that explanation. This has sort of been what I've been doing as a career for a very long time. I got my start as a writer, as a adolescent counselor. So when we use creative writing as a tool, and then it just my career as a writer grew from there. And then we met through creative justice, which I believe in all this. But to hear somebody who has the training as a clinician explain it, it makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate it. That leads me to another question, though.
Okay.
And I get this a lot from folks, and you probably do too. People are I don't know if we train them or we train ourselves to think art is something you're good at or you're not. You're an artist or you're not. So people who don't identify as artists, or maybe think they're not creative, can creativity still help them?
Yeah, for sure. And it's the folks who think they aren't artists and think they aren't the creatives. Those are the ones that I really appreciate the opportunity to work with. And my take on that, like if I was put my little spin on it, is like that notion is a scam. That notion is a construct, right? And I think you talked about this sort of in your lead up to the start of the questioning, is that young folks, or, people in our childhood development into our adolescent, into our adult development, there is like a theory of artistic development as well that like parallels that, human development. And so what it is that happens is that at some point during childhood or adolescence, typically it's between, the ages of like 7 to 15, young folks are like engaged in a lot of art making and a lot of creative processes. And then there is typically like some experience or series of like complex experiences where their light for art making and creativity gets stamped out.
That when we start testing them on those standardized tests?
I think that definitely has something to do with it. It also oftentimes has to do with like they were shamed or ridiculed for their art, or they saw their art in comparison, like, that one kid in the 4th grade that could do surrealism.
Yeah,
right?
That shit looked like a real apple. Stop. Like that kind of kid.
Kid. So what it is that they saw their art and they compared it to that one kid that was like a protege, and then they felt like they didn't add up, like they didn't measure up. And so a lots of times young folks, and we grow into adults, and what it is that's happened is like that one experience was just like stamped this unfortunate way of thinking about art making and creativity on their way of seeing themselves, and their way of seeing themselves juxtaposed to the world. And so like back to what I was saying about, I love connecting with those people because that fire can be rekindled. And I do a lot of that in my work. So as an art therapist, people are like, oh, so you only work with artists? And I'm like, no, I don't only work with artists. I love working with artists, but I also really love creating and making space for folks who think they are not creative. Because really what it happens, it's like kind of connected to a childhood trauma. And so supporting young folks through moving past and through that and re-engaging with their childlike or their artistic and or their creative selves can really help move them through and help them like metabolize an emotional experience that they had a long time ago, that is then, because they thought that they didn't have it, has probably grown into some other challenges and problems in their life, and maybe even to some serious anxiety.
That's really an important thing for me to hear. I mean, I hadn't thought about that. Like the what is the impact of us deciding we're not an artist? Like, what is the long term impact
Yeah,
of that?
and it's also it's an internalization of systems of oppression.
Mm,
Because when we think about like the creatives of the world, the artists of the world, they're not getting that same love or the same opportunity or that same praise as the kid who is really getting all A's or who
yeah.
is like taking AP classes. um we like to go to performances, we like to look at young people's arts, but it's always like, well, yeah, that's that, but no, we really want you to invest your time and attention into the medical field, into the engineering, into STEM. And I'm no shade on any of those fields. I'm gonna let you all know right now, all of those fields are really rooted and grounded in art making. They just it just what happens is that art making and creativity has been shaded, and then people have internalized that.
and
Yeah,
and it really, a lot of it comes down to like capitalism. How do we monetize something, right? And
that
yeah,
part, that part.
no, yeah, that's dope to hear you say that out loud. Dude, say it again. No, I'm
Yeah,
kidding, but
so for the
we're
question,
recording it, so we're gonna
I'm
turn it up.
yeah, run it back. So I'm looking at the text here on the screen. So for people who don't identify as artists, what do you think creativity can do for them? Yo, this can be a platform for activism for you, right? Or for like undoing that internalization of capitalism or of heteronormativity or of patriarchy or of sexism, racism, all of the things. So art making for you can be a way in which you support undoing those internalizations of those systems of oppression.
Yeah, I think about how deep of a hole we've dug for ourselves, just in terms of like, just all of the issues, social issues, interpersonal issues, all these things, and we really are gonna have to be creative and to imagine our way out of some of these problems, right? And so if we've stamped out that creativity, we have fewer people able to really open their mind and think of a solution that doesn't present itself, because we don't have, it's like my man Rakim said, dream and imaginate, right? Like, what I mean,
Mhm.
we gotta have
Yeah.
some people that can really
That's so
imagine.
wild. So I'm actually just like literally sitting in front of me. I just cracked this. This is
Hey,
Octavia's Brood. Yes.
yes,
And so this is a collection of works by folks that are, inspired by Octavia Butler's, The Parable of the Sower. And they have
yes,
wrote their individual, short stories and creative pieces that's really leaning into imagination. Because like you said, it's going to take a lot of creativity and a lot of imagination, because we ain't going to just think and cognitively process our way out of all of this.
that's right. And
And
it's not a market based solution out of it.
no,
We're
no,
not gonna
no.
sell or buy our way out of it either.
Hmm.
So
Yes, yes.
that's what's up. All right. So we've already I have one more question, and I've
Okay.
taken up a lot of your time. We probably already answered it, but I just for the sake of reiteration, we've talked a lot about what art can do for an individual, and we've just started touching on what it can do for us as a collective. So, in your opinion, what is the importance of creativity and art for us as a community or a collective?
Ooh. Wow. I mean, that's just I'm like, what isn't the importance, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
um,
I'm asking an artist and art therapist,
yeah,
so it's like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, like music, dance, performance, theater, poetry. I think art, those are all universal languages. And so I just like the art is just has the opportunity to really just like reimagine, reconfigure, undo barriers,
yeah,
to like push back against systems like in ways that like language and words might be limited, or also have the opportunity to be like manipulated and weaponized against folks.
Yeah.
Like art is just like such a it's like a liquid gold, or I don't even know, like
I used to say this. I used to say it's like for me as an individual, it was like it was like having the recipe for oxygen, right?
Yes,
Because you can really set aside all of this stuff that's really just weighing you down and breathe, right? Like
it is. So art, what art can do for a community, it is an antidote to the ills, and in whatever iteration that ill shows up. There, I can guarantee you. There, I'm like, I was like, test me, put it in front of me, put the thing in front of me, like, show me the thing, the problem, and I'm gonna try. Like art, I'm gonna come up with the solution. There's a way we can work this through an art-based or a creative process. Like I am hard pressed to think of a way to think of what art can't do for
can't do, right? That's right. That's right. And I really love the way, like, artists can kind of, I don't want to say trick folks, but kind of like, it's kind of like hypnotize folks into thinking about something they might not otherwise thought about, right?
Yes.
Because we hear it in a song or we see it in a painting and we're interacting with an idea that we might have just rejected, if someone said, well, let me just tell you about,
or let me put this in a report.
Or whatever, read this peer-reviewed study, or go to this installation at the gallery. You know what I mean? I'm gonna choose the gallery every time,
right? Yeah, it's so powerful, and it has been so powerful for me personally. I wouldn't be here, or I would be here not in this capacity. And so, just from a very personal place, art making has been, a real savior for me. I also think too, when I, as I'm doing my own work around reconnecting to, my ancestry and, spiritual practices of the diaspora, like, I'm like, it's all there. Like, oh, and then the next thing, like, I'm big on, getting out and in the nature and in the trees and out and in wilderness. I mean, Mother Earth, she is the ultimate installation artist for sure. That's like, I'm like, I got this little bamboo garden right outside of my apartment, and I'm just like, it's popping. Like, this is the installation. This is so creative.
And it changes every day, right?
It
like
changes every
just
day.
To notice those slight changes,
Yeah. So to me, it's like it's like I think about indigenous ways of being. I think about my ancestors, and I'm just like, art has been a part of the story. It's been a way to tell the story. Goes back like billions and billions before we even got here. So
that's right. There's those cave paintings, right? And those people who made those petroglyphs on those rocks were like, look, we were here, here it is. So it does. It puts it down for longevity and for those future generations to be like, yep, those folks were there and this is what they were thinking about and struggling with and finding joy in and all the ways that they brought beauty into the world on the planet. So thank you, Dalisha. I really appreciate this conversation. I love talking to you always, and to be able to talk to you about something where you are just the most expert person that I know. That is just it's really great for me personally, and I hope it's great for the rest of the community. Thanks for talking to us, Dalisha. I really had a great time, and I thought it was going to be 10 or 15 minutes, and we're coming up on 35 because you have a lot of knowledge to drop. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. This is my plug to all y'all. Whether you are an artist or you feel like you are not, find some crayons, markers, color pencils, paints, cross stitch, crochet, cooking a new recipe, styling your outfit, buy some plants and make a little installation in your home. I don't care what you do, but I highly, highly urge you to be creative and just while you're engaged in that process, take the time to be reflective of what it is that you are going through and what it is that you are learning by engaging in that creative process. Get your hands in there. I don't care what it is, just do it.
Oh, see, we should have just had that, and that would have been the whole interview. That's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
All right, we'll talk soon, Dalisha.